we would like to start because we were we actually did a Mediterranean action. It's like Eduardo said, we have to be active contemplation. So we were active about, we kidnapped Ross Daly to come here for the closing session, and he has to go in a few minutes. So we didn't want to give him up. So we first of all, we would like all of the people actually to relate to what we had in the last 2 days, and of course the crowd has to become active also, and you can ask questions, you can say remarks, you can address any of the lecturers, but I would like, please, Mr. Ross Daly to start with his impression from it. And when Ido and I discussed what are we going to do in the conclusion, and we said that it's going to be a conference to ask questions and not to give answers, so it's a problem to do a conclusion like Ido said. So we said any of the people who participated in the conference, they can ask a question or make a remark or give us a philosophical thought. Each one will decide what is their contribution right now. I will just start with what Eduardo said before, that women in the Mediterranean are invisible. So all the women here, I call you, except in Turkey. That was the best remark, you know. I'm kidding.
Women are always invisible.
See? Okay. But they didn't hear you. Okay, you start, bro.
Women are always invisible in matriarchal societies.
Yeah. But we grew it.
You want me to say something? Plastic bag and the bees, okay. Plastic bags and bees, okay. And the tradition, okay. They're wasps, rather more dangerous. But you can do it with bees, they're all right too. Well, since you're interested in that aspect of of tradition, okay, I can tell you another story, which is the story which they tell in Crete about how somebody learns how to play the lira. It's a rather nice little story, because what you're supposed to do is at dusk, at the end of the day, you take your instrument and you don't know how to play it, and you go to a crossroads. And you then have to etch a circle in the ground and sit inside the circle with your instrument there. And at night time, as soon as the sun goes down, demons appear and they come to you. And they try and convince you to come outside of the circle. Something which you shouldn't do, because if you do that, you'll be eaten by them, which is not much fun. So you stay inside the circle, and once they realize that they cannot convince you to come outside of the circle, they ask you to give them your lira to play it. And because you know that they are the best lira players, you do that, you give it to them. And one after the other they play, and they play really beautifully, and you know, it's the best thing you'll ever hear in your life. And one after the other they play all night, and then by morning they have to disappear. And so they give the lira back to you. And this has been your lesson for lira, for your life, is what you've heard on that night, sitting inside the circle. But before they disappear in the morning, you have to put the tip of your little finger outside the circle so they can eat that, and that's their payment. Yeah. Which, that sounds like a very sort of funny, quaint little story, and it is in many ways. But for me it has a lot of meaning, and I've been very much influenced by that particular little story. If you think about it, what is inside the circle is your personal world. That's who you are as a person. And the demons outside of this personal world, they belong to another world which is, should we say, outside of the constraints of time and place and things like that. And in a way, the demons are the tradition. You're getting everything from them, but you must not step outside of your personal circle, otherwise you will be devoured by it and you will cease to exist. So you must maintain your position inside the circle. You take everything you can from them, but you bring it into your circle. And of course you do give them a little bit of yourself, which means that something of you belongs there. And that's just my interpretation of that particular story. But I've always found that one very interesting, in seeing how an individual can relate to a traditional, a sort of a transpersonal and transtemporal tradition. Thank you very much.
Yes. You did? So we want to know the answer.
I had two questions. One was exactly that of the bees in the plastic. No, about wasp I had a nice impression. I never thought that wasp, an American expression very used for white American surgical testing. I didn't know that it means Vespa.
They also make an interesting noise if you put them in the plastic bag.
No, but I liked it because it was the plastic and the nature.
That's right, yeah. That's what I like about it.
It's absolutely possible to have plastic and nature. Nothing against plastic.
No, that's what I liked about it, because that's what I found interesting, was that this man wasn't stuck on ideas of traditionalism. If a plastic bag was useful, a plastic bag.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't have any disagreement.
I'm much more bothered with the missing piece.
Well,
I think this is the most interesting part.
it is the most interesting part. Because
You didn't speak about it.
oh, that's what says that something of you belongs to that. That means that, okay, you are an individual, you're in your world, you have everything in there, but something of you is there.
But you are not complete anymore.
Oh, that doesn't matter.
Oh,
We were never complete in the
I
first
think
place.
so.
No, but none of us was complete in the first place. That's okay.
Well,
And also, Ross, we wanted to ask you before you have to run, when Ido and I, we talked to you in the corridors actually, and we asked you and you said, immediately in the first sentence you told us, if I'm not mistaken, you correct me, you said that there is no such, everybody hears me. No. There is no such thing as being Mediterranean. The expression, you feel a little cross with it, and you want to prove otherwise. So we just were very much impressed from your your observation, and I wanted to, if you can, share it with the people.
Well, I mentioned something about that yesterday, which basically, as I see it through a musical term, was like, as I said, or should we say that the half of the Mediterranean is the Arab world. But you cannot look at Arabic music without becoming very much involved in Persian music, that they're born together, those two. And Persia is not in the Mediterranean. Also, it's very connected to things in sub-Saharan Africa as well, which again is not Mediterranean. Turkish culture is extremely influenced by Central Asia, which again is not the Mediterranean. And then all of the European Mediterranean states, they also have very strong cultural connections with other non-Mediterranean areas. So in a way, it's a bit restricting to be referring to the Mediterranean in an exclusive way. And also in some countries, it has been used, this whole sort of Mediterranean thing, as a rather thin disguise for certain types of nationalism, which are a little bit dangerous. I can think of many examples in Greece, which is where I live, where referring to the Mediterranean or the Eastern Mediterranean, making even that separation, has in many cases been used to disguise a certain type of nationalism by bringing the center of gravity to one particular place, when in fact it doesn't exist in one particular place, it's shared over a very much larger area. So that's my main reservation. Of course, any term which you use is always going to have a certain inaccuracy and a certain accuracy as well. It's going to be a percentage of those two. And
what's the importance of defining the identity in that sense? Why is it?
Well, for me, I never saw anything important about defining identity. Perhaps because in a way, maybe I don't have one, because I'm originally Irish, but I spent 30 years of my life in Greece and the rest of my life traveling around, and I lived in Japan, America, Canada, England, North India and Afghanistan. And so I don't really know if I have a home or an identity anymore. But in a way, to me, an identity is a way in which you describe yourself. But I've always found that a very contradictory idea, because if I am describing myself, then who is describing who? And that means that I'm immediately dividing myself, which is not a very good idea.
Another little bit goes.
Another little bit goes, yeah. We've already lost a little finger, we can now lose a foot or two.
Maybe I think the audience would ask questions. Will you play again?
Oh, that's a good idea.
We need a musician to tell us about design, and a designer to make the musician play.
Actually, what's the name of this is so about a lot of holes all over the...
This one has holes too, yes. Two of them, in fact.
According to the hole of what's his name.
Well, according to its hole, I would say this is it's a lira. It's an instrument used in the folk music of Crete. It's got three main playing strings, which are played by, not by pressing them like on a guitar or violin, but by pressing the nail to the side of the string, and that's what produces the notes. It also has several sympathetic strings which vibrate in sympathetic resonance. It's very closely related to another instrument which you find in Turkey known as kemençe, and also another one in Bulgaria called gadulka, or various types of lira also in various parts of Yugoslavia. And even in certain parts of South Italy, you find this instrument, and a variation of it. It's one piece of wood, yes, carved out of one piece of wood, which is, as I said yesterday, typical of rural instruments. And then it has one more piece of wood here on the soundboard. And then that's basically what it is.
Place where you put the coin.
No, this isn't the one you put the coin. But no, the other one, which is for the coins, is rather bigger, actually. Yeah. The pegs. The reason that the pegs are purely functional, actually. Yes, and it keeps it at the right angle to the body. Otherwise, it would not be practical. Yeah. So even though that has been incorporated into the design of the instrument, but it does actually serve a practical function. Yes.
say something?
Before you go, may I also ask for this?
Just say something very
Yeah,
important.
we're waiting for him, yeah.
Since your fingertip is not missing, I assume you are a devil.
My question will be a little bit difficult, actually. I already asked Dave, is this your composition? And he said yes. Probably, there are many people around you in Crete that are influenced by your music and compositions.
It has happened, yes.
Now, how do you see this? Because it's your identity that you describe perfectly well is now influencing a totally different country that you live in now.
Well, that does actually happen, and I'm sure I'm not the first person to have had an influence like that. It is true that Irish people do turn up in all sorts of places where you least expect them. Unfortunately, quite often where you least want them also. But anyway. But I don't think there's anything unusual about that, but I think that for me to have become in a position where I could potentially influence them, a prerequisite to that would be that probably I would have had to have been influenced very, very seriously by them first. Yeah. So that's very interesting, because that does produce what I see as being a genuine dialogue, where both sides are quite seriously influenced, the one by the other. Yeah. And I certainly hope I've been more influenced by them than they have been by me, anyway. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you all.
I wanted him to be here for this because it's really touched by what he said, particularly in this notion of the African coming up, the black African coming up into the north, the Persian coming into the Arab culture, and I think it could be a spark for an interesting aspect of Mediterranean design, culture, whatever, and that is the sense of the Mediterranean as a basin in which things from many places flow, a watershed in a sense. When you talk about Italian design, having designers from all over the world, it's that sense of the coming together in perhaps this region of influences from places that are far away, but sort of funnel in and pour in, and somehow we learn to live with that and deal with that. It feels like a spark of a positive spark.
Is it open? Yes, it is. So far as hope, this is a very personal thing. Now, hope for the future does not depend on the past. It would depend on the present. Allow me to tell you, I was born in this town, in Jerusalem. We used to live in a street that exists no more with this name. The name was Chancellor. It was named after one of the British High Commissioners, Sir John Chancellor. You won't know where it is unless you have this color of your hair. Now it is called Strauss Street. Next to our home, we had the Saint Joseph School, which was a monastery. And I grew up, a convent, sorry. And I grew up hearing the church bells of this convent. In front of our house, it's still there, was a mosque. And at that time, people were coming and praying in that mosque. Now, you could tell me, look, in every European city, a big European city now, You will have mosques in London, in Paris, wherever. But those mosques and convents catered for the same population because they were Jewish pupils going to the Saint Joseph. My own aunts went there. They were working people who went to the mosque. And of course, we were going to and fro through this Chancellor Street. It happened in my lifetime. Everything stopped, of course, later on. I need not tell you the history of this country. Now, it existed in the past. It may still exist in the future. When and how, you know the Hebrew saying that after the destruction of the temple, prophecy was given to the fools. I don't really want to appear as a fool. So I would say no more about this. Just another remark. We all heard Ross Daly's story about the round, so as people made by people in order to learn how to play the lira. Now we have a similar myth. You remember Choni HaMe'agel? Only it was not for the lira, it was for the rains to come down on earth. And another remark, when I heard the beautiful presentation by our friend Eduardo here, I was thinking about the Sibyl of Delphi. She used to have a tripod when she gave her prophecies. So there's nothing more Mediterranean than Delphi prophecy and her prophecies that came true.
Matteo was the first one who wanted to have the conclusion. He forced us. So yes, but I see that.
But Matteo was also the one that
Yeah,
wanted
question,
to
go ahead.
I think that's the best.
You're trying to.
אני לא זוכרת רק את השם המלא של הפרופסור מאיטליה.
ואני פסקה. ואני פסקה.
איך?
ואני פסקה.
Okay. Mr. Professor Dani Pasca, I would like to tell you I was very excited when you talked to us. I really felt
I'm very happy about
with the spirit also, with everybody, it was very really today for us. We came especially from Tel Aviv to hear you. I want to ask you a question which I thought about it all the time. I envy you Italians. I envy you. I want to ask you, what is the secret? If you could answer me. What do you think is the sparkle or the secret of the Italian, which are so good in everything, in every part, in art, in music, in the pizza, in the best in design, the it's not only for the job, it's really, I think about it a lot when I come to Italy. You have something very special, which we here in Israel, we are very too young, I don't know, we have many talents, but you have something very, really, that influences the whole world. Could you tell me something about your secret, or tell us something?
Excuse me, madam, but if it's a secret, I can't say anything. Yes, okay. Of course, it will be difficult talking after Giovanni. But his slides reminded me of my childhood, especially in summertime in Izmir. It's very hot, 40, 45 degrees.
I'm 3 or 4 years old, sometimes 5, 6, waiting for my uncle coming along, appearing at the end of the road. And my duty as a child was to run towards him and to collect whatever he is carrying, because he is coming from an old, and he was old, getting old, and also working for us. What he was carrying actually was, every day he used to bring this to us, a piece of ice. It's a huge ice strapped by strings, and it was not very easy to carry it because it's also melting, it's cold, it's hot there, it's cold there. You have to take it and bring it into the jar that Giovanni showed us. But it was a very big one, and the purpose of it, because there was no refrigerator at that time, it was the only way we were achieving cold water. Apparently, it was redesigned for a different purpose in these days, and used maybe in different environments to serve wine or white wine, I assume. But originally it was a big one. Unfortunately, we lost it. I'm still looking to find something like this. It's very rare in these days to find these old objects. But it was particularly designed to have a cold water and a big scale, not a small scale like that. Obviously, the function of the objects are changing. You didn't like the craftwork, but it was, in a way, craftwork and redesigned by a designer. Now, from there, I will come to my conclusion, if I'm allowed to. I think we are looking for platforms. Common platforms, common denominators to increase the level of dialogue and communication. And we are looking for identities. Yes, I think identities are important, becoming more and more important, because through identities we are achieving another common ground. For instance, very well, I think Rose described his identity. His identity is what he is, and what he eats, what he drinks, what he sings, and what he lived. Well, from this point of view, probably we will share a similar kind of pleasures. For instance, the music that we shared together with him. I'm sure we will all like similar kind of wine, similar kind of food, similar kind of climate. And the more we share these values, the more we begin to understand each other. Identities are becoming important because the national identities are disappearing. And ethnicities, ethnic identities or tribal identities are emerging, while the national identities are being fragmented. Not everywhere in the world, there are different things are happening at the same time. But what we see is that people are looking more and more their own personal identities. And these identities are I think, our richness. And through these identities, we find more and more common ground. Now, another common ground is the Mediterranean Sea. That's why we are here today. We are all around the sea, same sea, Mediterranean Sea. And if you look at the history, it started from here, Lebanon to Phoenicians, and the traffic that we never discuss. But the Mediterranean Sea was always busy through interactions and communications. So we are now opening a new dialogue, a new set of communication. So it's very interesting for me to see how we neighbors are not talking to each other. I was very lucky recently to travel a lot in the Middle East, first time in my life, with a group of Dutch German scholars. We have been in Cairo, Lebanon, particularly Beirut and Amman. And I realized that all these countries they are not talking to each other a lot. It's amazing, and all we are sitting next to each other, and we're all looking at the West, especially, Turkey and Lebanon and these countries. And no dialogue is going there. That was looking at Eduardo and waiting the final decision of European Union after tomorrow. It will be a very important decision because a new doors will be open towards East.
Sorry.
And this.
Today, the Prime Minister from Turkey said that he could not accept the condition of the Minister of the European Union at CNN this morning.
This is true. This is true because many things are being played around that, and the drafts are being changed again. It's a very political issue. I don't want to go into the details, but it's being used to impose certain things on Turkey. Although this could be a part of negotiation, and in the long run, all these things must be resolved. But they are using this as a kind of card, and he is also playing his card. So it's a political game then being played at the moment, unfortunately. But what I'm going to say, what I'm saying actually, is that these are the new doors of communication, and we have to open more and more doors. And because when we come together, we realize that we share lots of values, and we are together in the last 4 days, I would say, and we have been in different parts of this country, in a different environment, and we make friends, and I will feel pity when we are saying goodbye to each other, because we share lots of values, but we don't have environments to share these values, to understand each other. So what we are doing with this conference is to open another door to share the common values, I would say. Thank you.
I think the secret, I will tell it to you, or part of the secret is, after a long thought, well, I design products, industrial products, which tend to be, or people think about it as a kind of industrial, sometimes boring maybe. It's not connected to the arts maybe. And a few years ago I designed a product like that for an Italian film. And one of the engineers there told me, after it was designed, in 2 words, I think the secret. And I think it's part of the secret, maybe not all the secrets, all the secrets. And when he saw the machine, and he's just an ordinary engineer there, in the factory, he stood in front of it and said, "Bella macchina." I didn't hear it. I said, well, people told me it's nice, but it's almost like I designed a new woman there. So maybe it's a part of the, because there's something behind these 2 words that maybe I take from the culture of Italy. Bella, yeah. What a macchina.
Do you mean we have? Do you mean we have always a sexual approach?
The way you said mozzarella is like the bella macchina.
And the way we say Raphael.
Well, it's not really a question, it's my conclusion of the conference. It seems you had a wonderful time, we had a wonderful time, but my conclusion is that there's no such thing as Mediterranean design, and perhaps hardly anything as Mediterranean culture. And I mean, if you think otherwise, I'd love to hear that. There's a sea between us. I mean, it's very difficult to get Turkey.
I think there is a missing piece of a finger.
No, it's also because it's either a missing piece of a finger or a long nail.
Well, then the long nail is already a compensation. And I think the missing piece of the finger is that if you are not complete, you're trying probably all your life to complete yourself, and maybe this is the act of creativity. And if you are complete, there's no reason to leave. No, it's about the Italians. I can say The greatest
Where
charm
is
about
the cultural
Italians-
attaché, Italian cultural attaché that had to come here?
This is very consistent because we have the musicians telling about design, the designers asking for music,
And everybody
then all the others
talking
are
about
talking
Italian.
It's all going to reveal the secret.
It's that they are charming because they are not us, probably.
I will still try to answer you. It's like the Big Bang. It's something that it's a fluxes and a refluxes. So it's very characteristic. And it's part of is half of what you said. Things coming here and things coming out of here. We talked about the Sibylla and the tripod. I think design is also a prophetic activity in a way that you predict future. You produce things to be in the future, to be in the world, so you are predicting future. This is another very Mediterranean characteristic, a certain faith in prophets. The lucky Italians, although the origin, the point that marks the beginning of the modern age is the fall of Constantinople. It was, in fact, the re-rise of Rome. So they build on top of lots of ruins. They are building constantly future with the bella lingua, etc., bravi, etc.
Portuguese has some problem.
The fact is that the whole idea of modern, as opposed as ancient, as a continuing thing. If you think of Middle Ages, it's like when the things were separated in eras. The Middle Ages is non-happening. You have the ancient world, and you have a link of continuity to the modern age. And so they were, and Gianni placed it very well, they were at the center with a new idea that was very, very deeply on our roots. It was the idea of design. And I fight a lot with my English friends, and I agree totally with Vani. I think I challenge them to find any references for design as a graphic or a project, product, architecture prior to the visit of Inigo Jones to Italy when he read the Claudio treatise. So we can go on explaining the secret, and Gianni could say hot or no, it's a hot, cold, and then arrive at it. The fact is, they are in the center. They just are in the way. So. They are in the way, so we end up there.
I want to say a thing about that question. From my point of view, I'm not so interested in the matter if it does exist in Mediterranean design. And I am Carlo Van Nicola in front of me that he thinks exactly the opposite. I don't think, if I must say that exists something that link together all the way of making design in Mediterranean. I am much more interested in the idea that designer can meet, discuss in the Mediterranean countries of how they are designing, what they want to design, and problems like that. And the quotation of St. Louis is very nice for conclusion. There is Matejevich says a thing very important. I hope to succeed in translating that very well. He says we must change our mind on a question. Identity is not a problem of the essence of what make we to be something. Identity is a problem of what we want to do of our future. That's my idea. Yes, our future. And we call that a culture not of the essence, but of doing. We need in the Mediterranean country, I think, a culture of doing. In the meaning that I said before, doing means mind, means ideas, means projecting of the future.
When we're working on this conference, unfortunately we don't have the acquaintance of Carlo Nicola, and I got to know him in Genova, and that was a few weeks ago, and it was not clear that we could have him here, and then eventually he's here. And unfortunately he only was here for one day and not for both days, but I think this is the right time to have you, invite you and have you speak. I want to give something very meaningful. Yes. No, you don't want to fight. I want to begin with something very meaningful that you told me, which was one of the strongest things that I took from Genova, that I learned in Genova, which is something very simple again. It's not this big complexity. Carlos said, listen, when people research medicine, they start looking at things. And then they work maybe for a year or for 5 years, for 10 years, and sometimes at the end there's something, and sometimes not. This is research. And Carlos said, we can do this with the Mediterranean design. It smells good enough, or it tastes good enough, or it feels good enough to be something that we want to work with. And Carlo, I think you can do the rest better than me.
Sorry, the speaking is well, so it's not easy for me to explain.
No problem. You speak Italian.
Me and Vanni, I worked for the Genoa exhibition for 1 year, and we sing the same things, but maybe in different way. When this, I think this is one of when this research start. There is 10 different universities worked in this project, and they are worked only in a traditional way, food, weather, and so other things that in every case we consider Mediterranean. And we decide to start to look about a new idea, if it's possible to find now some identity in the contemporary design from the Mediterranean. It's possible that we are Mediterranean design, we are living in the same area. It's possible that this culture, this very ancient culture, is not possible to find in our project in this moment. Maybe sometimes we are functionalists, sometimes we are minimalist, sometimes we are historic design. Maybe sometimes we are Mediterranean design. So in this way, we think it's possible from now to the next future work about some new idea. So maybe we don't find a good way, but maybe we can find some new idea to explore how we have to do the design in the next future. This is our means, our necessity. And the idea is we have to find a way to destroy the globalization. Not because globalization is not good, but because we need a different way. We need a different image to continue to research in the design. If we don't try to find different way, maybe in 10 years, every people have the same image, use the same material, the same technology, and so maybe the research is finished. So we have to find a new way for example, imagine a Mediterranean globalization, South Africa globalization, American globalization. Maybe the difference is very near, it's not so big difference. But this is a cultural problem, a cultural different point to speak about design, to make a research about design. This is our idea. So we need, for the next time, work about some new idea to prepare the next exhibition for the Mediterranean. And I stay here because Ido and Elsa invited me to a workshop to work about some new idea, to work together for the next exhibition. And I think this is one of the most important things about Italian design is in every case maybe we have to try to find a new way. And maybe some way is good, some way is not good. For example, in this moment we are using a minimalist style. It's not from Italy. But maybe so many Italian factories use the minimalist style to sell the product in the world because it's a globalized image. But the very important, maybe, for example, the very important movement for Italy in the last 10 years, maybe is Memphis, is Alchemia, and they didn't made an important object or they didn't made a good collection to sell in the world, but it's very important for the Italian image. So I think this is another opportunity to work about the Mediterranean concept. Maybe we don't make a Mediterranean object, but we have the opportunity to work together for a new particular globalization of this area. I think this is our idea.
I'm an agricultural engineer, and to survive in nature, it needs variety of flower, of other plantations and vegetables. For example, in the beginning of the 19th century in Israel, there was a huge fatal disease in the grape for eating grapes, and the solution was to import new types from Italy and from the Mediterranean and also from Australia, I think. And I agree with you, and I agree with you, Yagadi. I saw it to me, I'm sorry to tell you, most of the furnitures, most of the jars and the ceramic were boring. They were the same. And it's not a key of innovation. If we are looking for innovation, we have to look for the needs, the problem. 2.5 years ago, there was a big crisis in France. In 3 days, 1,500 old people were killed by the worm, died by the worm. And this is a key of innovation. This is the needs. In our industry, we are not looking for the problematic clients. I have a really very good relations with people that all the time write me emails and clients. To us, it's a big opportunity to understand what will be the next fault of a new product. These clients, and I think you and I think most of you are teachers, so I think you have to go straight to the needs, to the problems, to the ecological crisis all over the world, to the fact that in the next 20 years, most of the world would not have enough water to drink. And I think here we have enough efforts, enough tradition, and enough knowledge and money, maybe to be a key of innovation.
If I can put a good word in for globalization. Well, I think one of the amazing things, there are other sides to it, which are to do with the resolution of the individual. And the resolution of a personal designer or a particular idea which gets to places that it hasn't before. And it also means that maybe the idea of where a particular designer was born or trained is less important. And the idea of identity is definitely important if it helps you do things, if it helps you discuss things. And I can now, I know about things that through one of the monsters of globalizations, the internet, I get to information that I had no idea I was looking for. It's fantastic. In that sense, it's making the individuals that are coming up with these ideas exposed, accessible, and able to convey other people's notions, people that are working, and other people find that these people are saying something in a better way, and the knowledge that is being circulated, I mean, and in that sense, that's an interpretation of globalization that for me is one of the great things that is happening.
Often with categories like globalization, complexity, identity, which always lead into a one-way track where the discussion ends, because if we say it's complex, it's globalized, there's not much to talk about any longer. And I think these kind of categories do not really help. What I would like to put as my conclusion is just to try to differentiate between two elements that we have in this discussion, which is a realistic image of reality, of Mediterranean design, and the fictional aspect of this discussion. And because I think they are very often mixed together. We start talking about reality and we end up with what would be our fiction without having made clear where we cross the border between those two categories. So I think Ido is right. We might name it very complex, but at the end it's very simple. The reality is that there is no Mediterranean design. Of course, there's design in the Mediterranean region, but it's split in two parts. It's very simple. There's the northern shore of the Mediterranean Sea, which has Italians speak to Spanish people and French speak to Italians. There's no problem. And there's the southern shore of the Mediterranean Sea, where there's not real exchange towards the northern border. And we can talk about history and say that there was exchange. Of course there was, but we always find examples for everything in history. So in reality, I think there is this dividing border. And if we want to talk about what might happen in the future, we have to say that this is the main task. There's no need to talk about design in the Mediterranean region. Forget about Mediterranean design. Design in the Mediterranean region without talking about how this border can be dealt with. So this is reality, what I would define as reality, the realistic aspect of the discussion. And the fiction would be how to come over this duality, which is not complexity, which is a duality. And there are a lot of ways how to get over this, how to define what we want to come to. And I think one way would be not to talk about the content, about Mediterranean design, about identity, complexity, and so on, because we know the globalized world is complex and identities tend to dissolve. But not to talk about the content, but about the container. That means about the structure of this Mediterranean region. And this is very special, and I think there a discussion can be started, because there are very few geographical regional structures which have the same structure like the Mediterranean Sea, as a melting pot, as a, on one hand, concentric structure where a lot of cultures come together, but on the other hand, eccentric structure where a lot of things spread out. And I think it would be worth to talk about these kind of visual models that define the discussion about design in the Mediterranean region, rather than to follow this fantasy of what are common criteria of Mediterranean design. For me, there are none, and we don't have to look for them. But I think this model, how this exchange can be established, is worth discussing about. And I think this is not, it's a fiction, as I said. It's this a fictional element of our discussion, but it's not a utopia. And so I think this is why it's worth talking about. So this would be my conclusion.
You were going to say something.
He was managed to get Silva on stage.
I'd like to say something about the container that you describe, and it's interesting because we want to create a communication in this container. However, there's a flow that is in one direction, and so you have many people from Northern Africa and other parts traveling to Italy and to France and Spain and maybe living there. However, you don't have the same kind of exchange the other way. So I think that this is, one of the reasons where, you have many people reading in North Africa, reading literature from France and Germany and Spain. However, you don't have the other way around, very little. So the exchange is not equal. So there's,
That's exactly one of these aspects that I think are important. That we talk about these ways how information flow and how culture flows, not about exactly what this culture may be, because this is defined and is studied, but how it flows. And for example, talking about these examples that you showed of Algerian designers, I found them very interesting. And you said that there was this influence of European academia, Beaux-Arts, to Northern Africa, but you would have to go on to say that this always reached a group of people which makes maybe 0.5% of the inhabitants of those countries, and so it would be worth to study what the relation of these designers are to their own country. And I think it is no coincidence that they are working for Northern Europe or for companies that are north of the Mediterranean Sea, because the markets are not in their own countries.
Two things after I say you the secret. First, I don't agree with you, because it's true that it was the 0.5 of the population, but in the 19th century and the first decades of the 20th century, people who could have that kind of liberty or art deco furniture were few, and also in Europe, maybe some decades before, but the life condition of the life in London after the 19th century. So the problem is not the problem of quantity. The problem is that we must not forget that the rich people, the elite, and the intellectual had that kind of culture. This is a fact, it's not a fantasy. The rest of the population, yes, of course, also in Italy, also in the South Italy, the situation was more or less the same 100 years ago. What I insist, we don't
we must not forget that problem. There is not a phantomatic identity, natural, spontaneous, country, and I don't know the other adjective. There was country, nomads, and there was also an elite of governors, rich people, and school where they studied Bezalel. But you say, Silva.
I think, I was talking about the present, not about 19th century.
No.
About today.
About today, okay. No, there is a question that I can put to you. I made a little impression about it. I think that in the Mediterranean, I am pessimistic. I'm not at all optimistic toward the situation. Last thing is that I said that to Mrs. Ginio that talked about Matveyevich. In Genoa, we had a meeting in which Matveyevich was, and the first things he told to us was that in European Union they have made a consultant group. There was Umberto Eco for Italy, there was Tullio Zevi, that it's the president, and there was Matveyevich. And it came there saying we did not succeed in making anything. There are years that we are discussing, but we don't obtain attention by the Europe of the real problem, and I can say other things very, very bad, I must say. But what it's a little different is that now literature, movie and music are three things in which there are a very strong exchange. And I can tell you that I know, what's the name, Amos Gitari, or Yashua, or Amos Oz, as I know Tamar Ben Jalloun, as I know everybody knows the Iranian movies, for example. I can say, if I can say that there is a big influence of the Italian movies of the 50s and of the 60s, of the what we call neorealism or neorealismus. But under this point of view, the cultural exchange made a jump in the last 20 years, and so on.
Johnny, so why still Silva is right? Why still design still is the same blockage?
I don't know. That's what we are to discuss. That's what we are to discuss. Otherwise, we have no. Otherwise, everything.
This exchange.
It's a wall. It's a wall.
That's a very precise conclusion, no? Very precise.
The exchange is new. Is relatively new, and it's going to perhaps take some time. There's matters of language as well.
I think there always have been more fluidity on the arts you spoke about. I remember Albers in Yesterday Ellen. We tend to think as what we call modernists in architecture in design. In fact, they are nothing more than neoclassicists. They are trying to save the idea of Euclidean space. A chair by Albers or a building by Mies van der Rohe doesn't have nothing to do with James Joyce's Ulysses or Virginia Woolf or Proust. There's no free stream of consciousness, there's no intersectionism, so it's more fluid. If you all are familiar with Barcelona, the real modernism, in parallel with the other arts, lies on the Gaudi and all this generation that were completely, you could say, out of control, out of lunacy, in the same way that Virginia Woolf worked. So they are neoclassicists. They are trying to.
Even this out, you have all kinds of people that are working like that.
No.
Yes.
No, but it's the gap that I'm saying. Not the visual arts, the ethical arts, the ones that have some purpose, some otherwise art purpose. They are more slow. They have more weight. They have the weight of markets. They have the weight. sorry, Jorge, they have the weight of the commitment, the $2 million project. They have to be accomplished with much more effort. So the kind, it's evident what Johnny is saying, because music is in the air, it flows through literature, letters are in the air. I think Silva is still right. The wall is for the makers of walls, but it's still there.
I have a question. We talked about history and the past and the borders, but behind the designers, the big designers, and the process of design behaves like. I want to ask you if you think that behind the designer, the process of design and the process of design is in the Mediterranean is the same, because you can find the same behavior in the world between the Israelis and the Italians and the Spanish, the same way of using the hand when we talk. And the process of design, like in Japan, is very different of the process of designing the Middle East or in the Israel region. So I wanted to ask you if you think that the behavior or the education behind the design of the designers in the Middle East is it something that it's worth looking for it in all the region, or it's something personal that doesn't cross borders?
Me? You look at me. No.
Yes, here.
I think we must pay attention. For example, I don't agree with Eduardo, because we had different ideas about history. But now, I don't think we can open another discussion if it's better neoclassical or expressionism. Because yeah, but after I say my secret, problem of design all over the world is that design is new. The first school of design that I know was opened in London in 1845. In Italy does not exist till the 10 years ago school of design, except some private school. I beg your pardon?
I said that was a secret.
The secret is so, but the secret I can say immediately. The Italian secret is that after a good meeting, it's better go and have a good dinner.
Unfortunately, we would love to talk all night, but I would like to thank all our lecturers from near and far, and I think it was fascinating. Even Edo and me, we wanted to feel a little bit like on the side of the crowd and enjoy the conference. I think we gained a lot, and we gained a lot of thoughts and questions and things to debate. And I think we really succeeded to sprout some ideas here to start a discussion either in this region or wider than that. Thank you very much for coming to the conference.
I think on behalf of the people here, can be a representative.
The crowd, yeah, sure.
I think that I speak for most of the people. Is that first of all, it's great that we have a design discourse here in Israel at that level, and I think that it's great that we have it in Mishkenot that host us here, and so thank for all the team from Mishkenot Sha'ananim.
Especially Yael Nahari, who thought of the idea.
I don't know the people, but all the people that we're having, many people in the background, and Yurit, and of course Ido, and all the people who were here coming especially for this event. For me it was really rich 2 days. Thank you very much.